Hi there, podcast and public radio fans. Heath Drusen here, host and creator of the Extremely American podcast. I'm working on season 3, which is an urgent story about neo-Nazi terrorists and how they helped build a modern white supremacist movement, even from prison. Some of their ideas have even made it to today's White House. It's both a gripping true crime story and a timely warning about threats to our democracy. And this time, my investigative reporting is funded by you. To support the project, please make a tax-deductible contribution at extremelyamerican.org. That's extremelyamerican.org. And thanks.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright filling in for Jim Goddard. It's Idaho Matters. Questions. We have questions. Has Ebola spread to Brazil and Italy? Could one pill a day double your chances of slowing the progression of pancreatic cancer? That answer may be yes. Do you have a family doctor? Most people say yes, but can you actually go in to see them? Turns out most people say no. Does yoga help cancer patients? And can prayer help reduce your pain? It's Wednesday time for our Doctor Roundtable with Dr. David Pate, former CEO of St. Luke's Health System and the co-author of the book, Preparing for the Next Global Outbreak. And he's here to answer all of our questions. Dr. Pate, good afternoon.
Hi, Samantha.
Okay, let's get an Ebola update. There's a lot going on. I wanted to focus on at least a couple of things. There was concern that travelers may have spread Ebola to Italy and Brazil. So give us an update. What do we know?
Yes, this has been very worrisome because the Ebola outbreak in Africa is not well contained. And we always worry that somebody is going to end up traveling outside that area and take Ebola with it. And so there was a great deal of concern, as you mentioned, with some travelers that had come from the Congo to those two countries. And one of them developed symptoms, but fortunately, it turned out had a different disease, and not one as serious as Ebola. The other instance was also a person that ended up having a serious problem, meningitis, but it wasn't Ebola. So we still need to keep our vigilance, but so far we haven't had a case get out of Africa that we've recognized, but I think that is still a significant risk.
All right. And an early investor in the COVID vaccine is handing out cash to researchers who are working on an Ebola vaccine. So when could we see a working vaccine for Ebola?
I think we could see the clinical trials for a new vaccine in just several months. Now, recognize that we do have a FDA-approved vaccine for the most common strain, the Zaire strain. So we already have that one. It's just that this current strain is very, very different, and we don't have confidence that this vaccine will work for that strain.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So, Dr. Pate, you wrote a whole book on preparing for the next global outbreak, actually titled Preparing for the Next Global Outbreak. And I want to ask you, on your new scale of danger of 1 to 10, how worried should we be about this outbreak in Idaho?
I think a 1 for Idaho. I do think it is quite possible that we could end up with a case in the United States. That has happened before. And when the outbreak is not well controlled, which this one is not, that is always a danger. However, even if it comes to the United States, the most likely is that it will present a risk to healthcare workers as the person becomes ill and goes to an emergency room, and probably closer to international access. The last case we had was in Dallas, but I would expect something like LA, New York, probably not getting to Idaho, but of course, we should all have all of our emergency rooms have a little bit heightened suspicion until this outbreak is under control.
Gotcha. Okay, I want you to tell me about this new drug that may help folks with pancreatic cancer. I have to say, I've lost two dear friends to this disease. It is horrific. You're diagnosed, and then 3 months later, pretty much you're dead despite chemo and other measures. It's bad. It's fast. It's pretty much untreatable. So tell us about, and I'm going to see if I can say this right, Daraxonrasib. This is not a cure, right?
That's correct. We're still talking about a dreadful disease with a oftentimes dreadful prognosis, not always, if it's caught early, but it's rarely caught early. But this drug has been the first development to more than double the expected life survival time. Typically, we're looking with these patients with advanced pancreatic cancer who are in stage 4, the highest stage. They've already gone through some chemo. We're looking at a survival rate of around 6 months. With this drug, in this initial study, it doubled it to 13 months. And that's quite staggering for the fact that we've not had anything anywhere near this effective in this particularly bad cancer.
Yeah, and just so folks know, pancreatic cancer, usually when you get it, you're already at stage 4 because it doesn't have a lot of symptoms that stand out. And so when you find out you've got it, it's usually fairly progressed, and it's not like they can just shove a new pancreas into you. So not a lot of options. So tell us any side effects with this new drug.
Yes, it does. And we're learning what those are. One of the big problems is it can cause some pretty troublesome skin problems. We're learning to manage those by having patients avoid sunlight and sometimes use topical steroids, maybe even antibiotics. And it can be quite problematic in some people. But it's also difficult because these patients usually have, they feel pretty bad to begin with. And so, but this is a very striking breakthrough. I think the significance is not that in this drug is itself, but the fact that it's clued us in to a way that we may be able to make further advancements, because now we know that because of the particular actions of this drug and what we're impacting, we know that's a route to pursue and see if we can come up with even better options.
Gotcha. And so one of the things I saw in this study, and we'll put a link to it on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org, is they talk about the CRAS or CRAS mutation, and that it may have something to do with how the drug is working. This mutation in other drugs as well. What do we know about this mutation?
Yeah, so there are particularly 3 mutations of the gene that is involved here. The CRAS that you said, it's actually with a K, KRAS.
Sorry.
or the other mutations are HRAS and NRAS. Most of us just call it CRAS. But it's the production. It affects the production of a particular kind of protein, and this protein is significant because it tells your cells when to divide and when to just kind of maintain the status quo and when to grow. And the problem is this has to be finely regulated because we don't want your cells, underreacting or overreacting. And the problem with this CRAS mutation is it can just kind of make this protein in a different form that basically just tells those cells go for it, divide, grow, and unfortunately that just drives the cancer. And we've had some other drugs that have kind of targeted this protein, but the protein is very difficult to target for reasons I won't go into. But this is the first time this drug really seems to be able to kind of shut that protein off and keep those cells from further dividing and growing, which is why it slowed down the progression of the cancer and why people got a longer survival rate. Now we just got to see what can we do to move this upstream. But you're right, this particular mutation is present in about 90% of these pancreatic cancer patients. But that it also leads to an intriguing possibility because those mutations are present in about 40% of people with colon cancer and in about 20 to 30% of people with lung cancer that have a particular form of it called adenocarcinoma, which accounts for just slightly less than half of all lung cancer cases. So there may be this scientific discovery may help impact some other cancer treatments as well.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on it. And like I said, we'll link back to it. Okay, so do you have a family doctor? Most people say yes, but can you actually get in to see them? Turns out most people say no. A new survey found out nearly 3 out of 5 people who have a family doc say they are unable to receive care when they need it. Dr. Pate, why can't we see our doctors?
Well, it's just a challenging environment, especially in a state like Idaho where we don't have enough primary care physicians and providers. And unfortunately, the political forces in our state are making things that are frankly making it harder for us to recruit new physicians to Idaho because they don't. Those physicians are in shortage all across the country. They have lots of choices where to go, and they don't necessarily want to practice in a place where the political environment and the kind of anti-scientific movement is as adverse as it is here in Idaho. So that's a struggle. But not having enough providers and then them just being very taxed, maybe they're tied up taking care of the patients they have, poor ability for us to have coverage when doctors are out sick themselves or on their vacation or whatever. So there's just a lot of reasons. And of course, a major flaw in our current system is that we tend to have doctor's offices visits available during the workday when people are working, and those are also the hours that your kid never gets sick. Your kid always gets sick Friday evening after the doctor's office closed. So it's all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the studies cited lack of available appointments, inability to reach a receptionist, a too long wait for the next open date, stuff like that. This study also says, as you said, that the problem is getting worse and that we'll need as a country 40,000 more primary docs by the year 2036. Call me a skeptic, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Then I belong to your club because I think that unfortunately we're just not doing what we need to do if we're going to solve this problem. And I just think we're on the wrong track for that. So we're going to have to try to look at other options, other ways of doing things. I know that there are some healthcare providers, even here in Idaho, that are trying some very innovative new things to see if perhaps this can help. I do think we've got to look to extended hours. That's hard to do when you don't have enough staffing, but we need that. But I know one physician group here in Idaho is looking at a new pilot program where you don't even need an appointment, and I think we might be able to take advantage of combining other healthcare providers in the team with the physicians, as well as technology, to be able to kind of, maybe almost like the air traffic control, where we can kind of just weave patients in and out of availabilities. And I just think we're going to have to come up with creative new solutions, because until the environment changes and becomes much more supportive for the very already difficult work of primary care physicians, I think it's just going to be unrealistic that we're going to be able to recruit enough.
So some people are already trying to find solutions, and this came up also in this study that we'll link to. They're using urgent care to take over the role of a family doctor. And I, just as a layperson, could see that as, it's an option, but is it dangerous? I mean, if you're just going to urgent care, you're not really having anybody look at the overall picture and maybe miss something?
Yeah, it certainly, I mean, there is definitely a place for urgent care. It's very important, but urgent care is focused on one thing, and like, what is the urgent problem? They're not going to be looking at all kinds of other aspects of your health like primary care providers do, where those visits are typically kind of a review of all your problems, at least periodically. And so you're not going to get well coordinated care going to urgent care. On the other hand, if you're cut your finger and it's bleeding and you need possibly stitches, something like that, then urgent care is a great solution to that, rather than going to an emergency room. But it's not primary care. And so, yes, I would never advise somebody to get all of their care from urgent care. It's going to be more expensive. You're not going to have continuity, and it's not going to be comprehensive. But of course, going to urgent care is better than never seeing a doctor. But
Right.
Things that kill people, that are kind of silent killers, you're not going to detect it that way, like high blood pressure, early diabetes, cholesterol problems. Those are the things that are going to determine your long-term health, and that's not what the urgent and emergent healthcare is set up for.
Gotcha. When it comes to our health, Dr. Pate, 43% of Americans pray. And a new study says it may be working. So researchers split up patients into two groups. One group prayed, the other group listened to music. Dr. Pate, tell us more about this study.
Yeah, so very, very interesting that this study was comparing those two, regardless of whether the patient was a believer and was in the habit of prayer. And so it showed benefit to prayer. Now, the way this was done was it's called intercessory prayer, which means that someone is praying for you, somebody stepping into that place for you, rather than just having the patient pray themselves. And so this person would come and be with you. And they did make a little bit of a complicating feature because they also combined it with the person laying on hands. And laying on hands is sometimes, of course, used with prayer, but it's not typical. And touch, we know that human touch can have a benefit for people, especially if people are lonely, anxious, those kind of things. And so there could be a confounder effect there, but that group nevertheless did better. And again, even if they were not particularly a believer or a faithful person. That was certainly very encouraging. It was really only about 5 minutes of prayer, and the effect was lasting for weeks. Of course, that's a low-cost option. It doesn't have side effects, so it's a wonderful option to add to the armamentarium of things that we can use to help manage the symptoms of cancer patients.
Well, and a large percentage of people in the prayer group said it helped, as you said, not just on pain, but even better on their anxiety levels. And you mentioned human touch, because there was touch involved. But do we know if this was because they were praying, or also another factor, there was human interaction? The music group just listened to music, but the prayer group had another person. How, could that have also had an influence?
It could. And so, this is a study that is interesting, but it doesn't give us a definitive answer. Now, they would need to separate out these confounding factors. For example, they might have one group that just incorporates prayer in themselves. It could be a second group that has the intercessory prayer, that is with somebody else having giving the prayer for them, but not touching them. And you could have a third group that maybe someone is touching them, holding their hands, whatever, but not praying. And we could see, are those outcomes different? That would let us kind of hone in on what specifically is the benefit. But certainly as a Christian doctor, I've known for many decades that patients that incorporate prayer they seem to do better. Here's a good study showing that. And also the impact that I as a doctor can have when I come in to see my patients. I typically sit down and then hold their hand or something, and I've always sensed that patients had a positive response to that, rather than me standing at the door, on my way out and not touching them and spending time with them.
Well, you are a doctor and a Christian. How are you feeling about prayer when it comes to if the patient is comfortable with it?
Yeah, first of all, I do think, as a believer, I feel like prayer is an important way for me to just get through all of life's challenges. But also, when you're anxious, and I found this myself, just in my everyday life, when I'm getting a little overwhelmed by all the pressures, when I'm wrestling with a really tough decision, boy, it just helps to clear my mind for 5 minutes. Go outside someplace where I can look to the sky, look to the beautiful hills, mountains, other things. Just kind of get away and just have those few minutes of prayer. Boy, it works wonders for me. I think it's very powerful, and I think that we should offer that to patients that are interested, and probably not just in cancer patients. There's lots of illnesses that produce anxiety, and this is a powerful way to deal with anxiety. I frankly was surprised to see that it had as much benefit on pain as it did, although, as you said, the biggest improvement was in the anxiety score.
All right. Okay, here's another one. Yoga and cancer. A new study says yoga can reduce anxiety and insomnia for survivors of cancer. So if you're lucky enough to beat cancer or are still fighting it, apparently there are plenty of physical and mental side effects. We know that. Let's talk about the side effects that yoga may be helping. What are some of the most common ones that we're dealing with here?
Yeah. Now, whereas I do have experience with prayer, I don't have experience with yoga.
That's okay.
Maybe I should. I'm intrigued by goat yoga, but haven't tried that. But the symptoms here in this study they looked at were emotional distress, anxiety, fatigue, and insomnia. And these are common problems in cancer patients and cancer survivors.
Gotcha. Okay. And I would also advocate for kitten yoga if you really want to calm down. So this study took cancer survivors. They were mostly breast cancer, split them in half. Half got regular care. The other half also got yoga for cancer survivors. Yes, that's a thing. So how did the yoga help? How did it do?
It did. And not being an expert on yoga, I had to kind of look this up. They did hatha, if I'm saying that right, yoga and restorative yoga. And as best as I can tell, that means that it's as opposed to the kinds of yoga where there's more fast movements, might be some cardio involved and all. This was really yoga that focused more on the deep breathing, the slow movements, and so forth. And it showed benefit. And it showed that they had improvement in those symptoms. And I think where all of this is headed, Samantha, is that we really know that in cancer patients and cancer survivors, we really have to focus on the whole person, their mind, body, and soul. And so I think that these things that, include a focus on things beyond their medical treatment, beyond chemo, beyond radiation, beyond those things, to address their physical well-being, to address their mental and emotional well-being, and to address their spiritual well-being. I think that what these studies are showing us is that those are important things and patients can benefit from it. And, I would imagine that if they did a study showing, or they looked at people doing yoga and prayer, they might even have more improvements. So I think it gives us some really nice options to augment the total care of the total person.
And we've got about a minute left. I mean, we've gone so far into specialty medicine and treating one piece of the body at a time and forgetting that whole body thing. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, that's what we need to be looking at.
Yeah, that's precisely correct. And, we're just finding in so many aspects of health that and you and I have talked before about things like Alzheimer's disease and neurodegenerative conditions that, the importance of diet, the importance of exercise. And I think that is true for most medical problems, that we need to not just focus on the body, but keep in mind the spiritual, emotional, and other physical matters of health, that how we can improve their life and well-being.
Dr. Pate, as always, you are our guide through the public health wilderness. Thank you so much today.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking with Dr. David Pate, former CEO of St. Luke's Health System and the co-author of the book, Preparing for the Next Global Outbreak. If you have a question, a public health question for our Dr. Roundtable, send us an email, idahomatters@boisestate.edu, and we'll see if we can answer it next week.
And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Make sure you check out our podcast feed because you can find more episodes of topics that might be interesting to you. And for more local news and headlines, make sure you subscribe to the Connector podcast. Are you subscribed to this Idaho Matters podcast yet? Make sure you're following so you never miss an episode.
Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious, because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.